Good morning, Magic fans. I'm here in sunny San Diego for the regional championships. I'm Tannen Grace, and I'll be your host all weekend long. We bring you deck techs, player updates, results, all that stuff all weekend long. These players are filling up the room ready to play for their chance at the World Championship and some spots at Pro Tour Minneapolis, not to mention some cold hard cash. So don't miss any of the Magic action this weekend right here on this channel. Don't go anywhere. But with that, let's send it down to the casters, Corey and Daquan.
All right, everybody, welcome to the U.S. Regional Championship Tournament here in sunny San Diego. My name is Corey Baumeister. That's Daquan Watson. We're going to be bringing you coverage here all weekend long. And I got to ask, Daquan, what are you most excited for?
And I am excited just to be watching some standard coverage because honestly, we haven't had any in a while. And this is probably the most diverse standard we've had in a long time, like longer than I can remember. So I'm really hoping to see some cool breakout decks today, hopefully.
Yeah, the format looks absolutely awesome. But speaking of formats, we got to check out the format of the tournament we're going to be playing here. So let's take a look at this, at our coverage team, excuse me, first. We're not going to be the only ones who's going to be bringing you coverage here. We got us two, and then Monty Davuti and Todd Anderson will be bringing you the rest of the coverage here from the weekend. Now let's take a look at the structure of the tournament we're going to be playing. So this is it. Day one, Saturday. It is going to be a 9-round Swiss tournament where 18 points or more will advance to day two. That is a 6-3 record or better. And then tomorrow we're going to be bringing it in with day number two, starting at 10:30 Pacific with 5 rounds of Swiss. And then it'll be the single elimination top 8. But these players got to be playing for something here. So Daquan, what are they playing for?
Honestly, first and foremost, we were playing for $130,000. Like that's no small chunk of change with $30,000 going to first place. But more importantly, because this is one of the early regional championships, we've added a lot of extra invites to this event. So there's going to be 48 invites for the Pro Tour and the next regional championship and 2 invites to Worlds. So if you make day two, even if you have a rough start, you've got a lot to play for later in the day as the weekend goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody making it to day two, even at a 6-3 record, they have the world to play for. So yeah, going to be a really awesome tournament here. We're going to be setting up round number 1 here for our feature match. And we got a bit of a spicy one here, Daquan. We have Jarvis Yu that is going to be playing Grixis Midrange here, which, you know, a deck that a lot of people would be expecting up against. Well, I'll save it for now. How about you tell me about Grixis Midrange here first, Daquan?
You know, this has kind of become one of the bad guys of best of 3 Magic here. When you really, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense, right? All these cards are just value cards, whether you're talking about Invoke Despair or the best card in Standard, as we all like to call it, in Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So yeah, this card is just going for advantage on top of advantage. But surprisingly, it wasn't even the most registered deck of the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see where this plays out as the weekend goes on.
Yeah, it really did kind of have a falling out, you know, and a lot of players put it down in exchange for just traditional Rakdos. But Jarvis still going with the Grixis build. So let's check out Jarvis's opponent here. And we got Abel Osario that is going to be playing mono red aggro. Daquan, tell me about this deck.
Yeah, like, let's be honest. These are both bad guys, right? So we might need chat to tell us which side we're voting for here to win on this matchup, because I think we love to hate both of these decks, but they're both really powerful, really strong. Though I think mono red is at a disadvantage in this matchup, but if they can get a really good start in the first couple of turns, it could be hard for Grixis to climb out of the hole.
All right, well, we're going to find out who is going to have the better start here for our first round at the U.S. Regional Championship. I'm really excited, Daquan. Let's do this.
Yeah, like I said, let's get strapped in for the weekend. We got a lot of standard ahead of us. This should be pretty exciting, especially seeing how diverse the field is. I think I went and looked. We have something like 13 different decks that made up 2% or more of the field, and a pile of just creative decks that people brought that just one-ofs, right? So
yeah,
it's so much to look forward to.
Wow, and speaking of just a tournament to look forward to in general, look at this beautiful natural light venue here. I've been seeing some pictures of this, and I got to say, it just looks incredible. Like, it looks absolutely incredible. A little bit of, wanting to be there myself, too, because it does look gorgeous.
Well, hats off to the Dreamhack folks. They've really taken care of Magic this go-round and really just elevated the overall look and feel for the event.
Yep, absolutely. So it looks like Jarvis is on at least a mulligan here to 6. Seeing one card being put at the bottom. And it looks like we're going to be underway to start. I got to say, right, Daquan, I'm so excited for this.
Dude, that makes 2 of us. Seriously. I'm so glad to have standard finally. Paper standard back, really.
Yes. Yes, that's the main thing. I love me some paper Magic.
All right, looks like the players just got the go-ahead. So we're going to open up with a Phoenix Chick here. Not a surprise. It's kind of a typical start for mono red.
Yeah, absolutely. Get that damage in.
Yeah, just a land tapped and pass here. So this is kind of the start that Abel wants, right? Get a couple of early bodies here and see how much damage you can get in before you start letting Jarvis pile up that value we were talking about.
Yep, totally agree. And looking at Jarvis's list, has the full package of removal spells, 4 cut down, 4 go for the throat. So plenty of removal and stuff. But I think the main card I'm going to be looking at has one of Gix Command. And Gix Command just ends up being so strong against these mono red decks to just have that lifelink hit. That is just really, really important.
Yeah, and one of the things, Corey, like when you're in these mono red matchups, how quickly do you want to use your removal on something there where you got to kill the harvester instead of sending, say, like Play with Fire upstairs?
Yeah, I almost always, you want to be dealing with the creature really from both sides, like it is all about containing the battlefield from both sides for a little bit of different reasons. Abel is trying to clear blockers away to get more creatures in. Jarvis is trying to not die, and one card that really pushes you into a bit more of the dying category is the Furnace Punishers. Furnace Punishers are so aptly named in these matchups against Grixis. They're just so punishing on these greedy mana bases. And we're just going to see that, dealing 5 damage a turn, essentially, with the ability. It's so disgusting.
Yeah, and the Furnace Punisher is actually a fairly new addition to the mono red decks. That's something that started popping up over the last couple of weeks that you didn't see in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it's a good inclusion, though, and I think a lot of decks... mana bases are adjusting to this.
Wow, Abel just had all the burn in hand and just took care of it right there. Like, so sick.
Wow.
That's the start, though.
I was just trying to make a point there. I didn't think the game was ending on the spot. Like, that was an incredible first game.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're talking about, though, right? Abel needed that game 1. Just get the damage in, get it over with, because the sideboard games are likely to be more difficult.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Taking a look here, I'm not totally sure. What would you recommend sideboarding here from Jarvis's side, knowing that, like you said, your whole plan is just to not die, not necessarily try to win sometimes?
Yeah, 100%. So just bringing in basically every bit of removal is probably the most important thing. Some cards that are not so great. The Make Disappears, Invoke Despairs ends up being a little expensive. Blade Coil Serpent that Jarvis has as a one of. These kind of bigger cards end up being things that I don't like a lot. And the cards that Jarvis had on the board to really help out here, I see 1 copy of Abrade, 1 Brotherhood's End, even a Soul Transfer if you're interested in just more removal, but then 2 Annoyed of Afflictions will be excellent. And that's about all I can imagine. The name of the game is just kill as many creatures early, and then the value of Grixis will naturally just take over the game from there.
Now, I would say conversely, when you're looking at Abel's side, should he be trying to play a bit of a longer game? Because he does have 3 Chandras in the sideboard. And it's
Yeah.
like, if you know those games are going to go a bit longer, are you looking to bring in something like Chandra and Koth, expecting Jarvis to bring in more removal?
So I was honestly hoping, Daquan, you wouldn't ask me about that, because for me, mono red, every time I play against this deck and I see when these mono red decks like start transforming into this really heavy hitting deck with a bunch of planeswalkers and I'm on the Grixis side, I'm just like thumbs up, like, you got it. You're slowing down your deck, which is the scariest thing for me. Of course, I've lost to Koth. Of course, I've lost to Chandra before, but I always have that kind of inner dilemma with myself when I'm playing the mono red deck. Like, should I just be barely sideboarding in this matchup, or should I really be reinventing the wheel and bringing in a bunch of planeswalkers? And we did see Abel took out Phoenix Chicks in exchange for what I would assume is some bigger planeswalkers.
Yeah, so this is what I was saying. Like, you're getting that weird kind of like trying to guess, like, do I know what they know? Kind of like the second level of poker sort of thing.
Yeah,
like,
there you go.
like what are we sideboarding in and what are we trying to compete against? And this is also a thing too, where the practice that you put in is going to pay off a lot here.
Yeah, and another card, Rending Flame, is probably what came in. It looked like Abel took out about 6 or 8 cards or so. I would assume some planeswalkers, but Rending Flame is probably the #1 card that you just kind of have to have, because, well, Shieldred just brings the end so quickly that it's just a must deal with threat. Not even because it creates such a fast clock with how powerful of a card it is. It's all the life gain in this matchup.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I can't count the number of times I've cast a Shieldred against mono red and they just scoop a turn or two later.
Yes. Or they kill your Shieldred and you scoop, just as fast. I would totally agree.
So yeah, it looks like both of them put a lot of thought into what they were sideboarding here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, hey, this is such a big tournament. We were just going over the money there, and I mean, that is just so much money to be playing for. These invites are huge. It's pretty much a mini pro tour. I mean, it's that worth it. And with those slots on the line, it's even more worth it.
And it looked like we both kept here, so this should be a good one. Opening with Commando Faces Kakazan to get a point in there.
Okay, and we have both players keeping. Gotta like that.
And this is where I always assume, if I'm on Abel's side, that like Jarvis likely kept removal available. So you're kind of plotting out what's going to die here or not.
Yeah, or could still be Make Disappear. I was saying Jarvis would probably take those out almost assuredly on the draw, but on the play, they do still line up pretty well. So it'll be interesting if Jarvis decided to keep those in.
So Swift Sphere came down, got a counter, and swiftly died.
Yeah, especially with that bonus counter, having that removal spell available after Kakazan comes down is just so important. You get so much value off of it.
Yeah, and this is what you hate to see, really, when you get a Corpse Appraiser right after that, and they get their choice of cards to just keep the pressure on.
Yep.
This is where it starts to fall apart really quickly.
Yeah, this is the dream start. I mean, the absolute dream start. Maybe a turn 1 cut down from Jarvis on another creature, and then go for the throw would, technically be a little bit higher, a little bit more valuable. But this is exactly what these Grixis decks are trying to do, is just gain value off this, and next turn follow it up with a couple removal spells or some heavy hitters like Shieldred.
Yeah, and this transforms into the etchings of Commando, but you really can't punch past a 3/3 here without wasting a removal card. Yep. So we're back to the easy damage, taking 2.
Man, Furnace Punisher just looking great here. It I mean, kind of has pseudo haste here, where you at least get a couple of damage points in. And the one thing that's actually a little bit better for Grixis players, especially Jarvis in this situation, as you see a second swamp here, was the rise of these mono white mid-range decks that were playing a bunch of Demolition Fields and Field of Ruins. Really made all these decks respect that ability and put a lot more basics in their deck. It just so happens to have an advantage against Furnace Punisher as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of the interesting thing that happens sometimes as a metagame develops, because you almost can end up with collateral damage from the effect of another card being popular.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I mean, look at this. Abel has another Furnace Punisher in hand. I mean, the game would look so different if those 2 swamps were there as an Anoint deals with one of these cards.
Yeah, and that's a little bit tough for Abel there. We were able to Lightning Strike, get a creature out of the way, but then ultimately just lost another creature. So you're not really getting too far ahead here.
All right, so
Also,
Abel,
interesting thing here, whenever you see Invoke Despair go off, this is something I've seen people make mistakes with. But if you saw Abel, he actually sacrificed the etchings as his creature of choice,
Yes.
so he didn't have to lose both permanents.
Exactly. Just deciding it is so much more worth it to lose a little bit more life instead of losing another permanent on the battlefield, since it is an enchantment. Totally agree. That is a mistake I see quite often. Obviously, these players have probably already made that mistake if they're here at the regional championship, but I totally agree with you, Daquan.
Yeah, and that's the thing to remember too. Everybody we're going to see this weekend qualified for this event in some way. So they've all got at least some small skins on the wall, if nothing else.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. When I was just testing for this tournament just to be a commentator, I so just wanted to play. This format was so much fun that I just found myself thinking like, okay, can they get a backup commentator if I go to side to play? Because I was just having so much fun. Mostly casting Fable the Mirror Breaker. It might be my favorite card of all time.
Well, looks like Jarvis is going to be on card advantage central here. We got a Fable of the Mirror Breaker down alongside another Corpse Appraiser. And it looks like things are slowly starting to slip away from Abel here.
Yeah, this is definitely the game that Jarvis has to win and realistically should win. On the play, had a removal spell on 2, has that go for the throat. And now we do see... the real question is, can Koth take over here? And if Koth can, excellent.
Yeah, Koth is a powerful card if it gets to stick around. It's just how many turns is he going to have to do his business? All right, looks like we do have the mana to fire something out of the graveyards. Looks like we're using another Strangle again, then exiling that.
Yeah, that card just looks great right now as well. I know that wasn't a card. Bloodthirsty Adversary wasn't necessarily being played by every list I saw, but wow, this is putting Jarvis in a really tough spot right now to go down and lose half your life or keep your Goblin Shaman or just sacrifice it.
Yeah, interesting that he didn't want to eat up some of the damage there by blocking. So Jarvis obviously has a plan here.
Yeah, and it's just a chump block. So Jarvis probably just recognizes having the Shaman to pressure Koth, which I guess Koth is at 8 there, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Or 26, however way there. But yeah, just looking to pressure that to keep Koth out of ultimate range, because Koth's -7.
There you go. He's gotten Invoke Despair.
Okay, that was much needed.
Yeah, that'll deal with Koth.
All right, so that takes out Koth as well. Jarvis will get to draw a card and have some damage lost, but as it stands right now, being at 6, Abel has that factory available to fire up. I'm not sure if any cards in hand, but either way, Jarvis is not out of this yet for sure.
Yeah, Jarvis, depending on what removal cards he has access to all the mana he needs. So he's not, even though he's only at 6 life, he's not under a ton of pressure.
Yeah, and the Furnace Punisher does have Menace, so that is extra tricky here. Jarvis fans are definitely hoping there's at least one more go for the throat to be able to deal with this. But another great thing about Furnace Punisher is it doesn't get cut down. Most of these Grixis decks, even Rakdos decks, are playing 4 go for the throat, 4 cut down, and if half your removal spell doesn't work, oh my.
Yeah, it just came through. He didn't have an answer for it. Wow, so 2 quick ones there from Abel. Wow, and I have to admit, the way that started, I thought that game was going to go a little bit of a different way. So I don't know. I was ask you, Corey, like, is that what you expected? Because I thought that the Grixis deck was going to have the advantage there.
Yeah, I would say that as well. Mono Red did kind of pop up to be a Grixis Slayer. That really was what it was trying to do. But all the lists weren't really fine-tuned to be specifically good against Grixis, but the 4 Furnace Punisher in the main especially is the card that really stood out to me. That looks excellent in this matchup, and it just proved to be the most difficult card for Jarvis to deal with. So, yeah, huge congrats to Abel at picking up round number 1 here. It's still a long day, and we still got plenty more Magic for you. We're going to take ourselves a short little break, and they'll be right back with a backup match here at the Regional Championship.